Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet and leader, stay right here with us, filling us with your love. And by the Spirit, we lift up hearts in praise. Without a doubt, you know that we have been revived when we shall leave this place. Bless up yourself, everybody. Welcome into the last. Oh, watch out. Mr. Kadeya. 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 Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? Happy Sunday to you all, guys. How are you all doing? It is Sunday. We are going to see if we can slip in about 45 minutes to 1 hour of reading. We can't read one book just in one sitting. So we have to read the book piece by piece. Was it yesterday or Friday? One of those days, I started reading this book, The Guardian. We haven't gotten the full gist of it yet, but we are moving along. Moving along. We were just a little ways into chapter one, and I'm not sure I get the whole gist of the book yet, but I'm starting to like the author's style and his way with words. I don't think I've ever read a book by Nicholas Sparks before. So we are on this journey together. All right. So come with me, guys, and let us read. We're not going to waste too much time. God say, but watch me slipping in over there so well. I'd rather slip in than slip out. How about that? What's up, sis? How you doing? Happy Sunday to you, my love. I hope you're having a great, great, great Sunday. All right, so I hope y'all remember what we read the last time. All right, because we are just going to continue. Even if it did mean she talked to her dog in complete sentences, had arguments with him, and asked for his advice now and then. But hey, she told herself, that wasn't so odd, was it? They had been together since Jim had died, just the two of them, and for the most part, Singer was pretty good company. Singer, though, had been acting strangely ever since she started dating again, and he hadn't liked any of the guys who had shown up at the door in the last couple of months. Julie had expected that part. Since he had been a puppy, Singer tended to growl at men when he first met them. She used to think that Singer had a sixth sense that enabled him to tell the good guys from the ones she should avoid. But lately, she had changed her mind. Now, she couldn't help but think that he was just a big furry version of a jealous boyfriend. It was getting to be a problem, she decided. They were going to have a serious talk. Singer didn't want her to be alone. Did he? No, of course not. It might take him a little while to get used to having someone else around, but he'd understand eventually. Hell, in time, he'd probably even be happy for her. But how, she wondered, was the best way to explain all of this to him? She halted for a moment, considering the question before realizing the implications of what she was thinking. Explain all of this to him? Good Lord, she thought. I'm going insane. Julie limped to the bathroom to start getting ready for work, slipping off her pajamas as she went. Standing over the sink, she grimaced at her reflection. Look at me, she thought. I'm 29 and falling apart at the seams already. Her ribs hurt when she breathed. Her big toe throbbed. And the mirror, she realized, wasn't helping things. During the day, her brown hair was long and straight, but after a night in bed, it looked as if it had been attacked by comb teasing pillow gnomes. It was frazzled and puffed out, under siege, maybe, as Jim so kindly used to put it. Mascara was smeared down her cheek, the tip of her nose was red, and her green eyes were swollen from the springtime pollen. But a shower would help with those things, wouldn't it? Well, maybe not with the allergies. She opened the medicine cabinet and took a Claritin before glancing up again, as if hoping for a sudden improvement. Ah, maybe, she thought, she wouldn't have to work so hard at discouraging Bob's interest after all. She had been cutting Bob's hair, or rather, what was left of it, for a year now. 2 months ago, Bob had finally worked up the nerve to ask her out. He wasn't exactly the best looking guy in the world. Balding, with a round face, eyes set too close together, and the beginnings of a paunch. But he was single and successful, and Julie hadn't been on a date since Jim had died. She figured it would be a good way to get on her feet and get her feet wet in the world of dating again. Wrong. There was a reason Bob was single. Bob wasn't only a triple boogie in the looks department. He had been so boring on their date that even people at nearby tables in the restaurant had glanced her way in pity. His preferred topic on conversation on their date on their date had been accounting. Imagine that. You're out on a date with a guy and he's talking about accounting. Well, bring out the checkbook and just write me a couple of checks. Just transfer a couple of dollars into my account and we can keep talking. Who that? AG, are you that? You just made my Saturday. Only person could have made my Saturday any better is if Joe show up. And I know Joe is somewhere in the background. Him just not saying nothing yet. Yard food is in the place. Bless up yourself, sis. How are you doing? Good to see you. Yard food say, AG, you need to try the watermelon in the red stripe. Watermelon in red stripe? Me not think me like red stripe. Red stripe kind of have this donkey pee taste. Me don't know. That's just me. But anyway, all right, so Joe there. Joe Roland. On a Saturday, a Sunday. Oh, sorry. Okay, okay, all right. Might be a little frazzled around the edges, like Julie we're reading about here. She's frazzled around the edges because her partner died a few years ago. She's testing out dating again. Maybe I'm a little bit frazzled, not realizing that it's Sunday and not Saturday. Well, forgive me, guys. Maybe it feel like a Saturday to me. Oh my word! You know, I was listening to some of my Bible readings, and I be talking about Proverbs when I'm reading Isaiah. I be talking about I'm reading from the Psalm when I'm reading. I'm like, what in the world, Trev? My mouth is saying what my brain hasn't yet formulated. But anyway, we are moving right along. It is life and my life, and we're moving along. But Jojo, what's up? Let us continue. He had showed no interest in anything else. Not her, not the menu, not the weather, not sports, not the little black dress she was wearing, only accounting. For 3 hours she had listened to Bob drone on and on and on about itemized deductions and capital gains distributions, depreciation, and 401k rollovers. By the end of the dinner, when he had leaned over the table and confided that he knew important people at the IRS, Julie's eyes were so glazed that they could have flavored a dozen donuts. It went without saying, of course, that Bob had had a wonderful time. He had been calling 3 times a week since then, asking if they could get together for a second consultation. He. He was persistent, that was for sure. Annoying as hell, but persistent. Then there was Ross, the second guy she dated. Ross, the doctor. Ross, the good looking guy. Ross, the pervert. One date with him was enough. Thank you very much. And can't forget good old Adam. He worked for the county, he said. He enjoyed his work, he said. Just a regular guy. Adam, she found out, worked in the sewers. He didn't smell. He didn't have unknown substances growing under his fingernails. His hair didn't carry a greasy sheen. But she knew that as long as she lived, she'd never get used to the idea that one day he might show up at the front door looking that way. Had an accident on the plant, dear. Sorry to come home like this. The very thought gave her the shivers. Nor could she imagine handling his clothes to put them in the laundry after something like that. The relationship was doomed from the start. Just when she was beginning to wonder whether normal people like Jim even existed anymore, just when she was beginning to wonder what it was about her that seemed to attract oddballs like a neon sign flashing. I'm available. Normalcy not required. Richard had come strolling into the picture. And miracle of miracles, even after our first date last Saturday, he still seemed normal. A consultant with J.D. Blanchard Engineering out of Cleveland, the firm repairing the bridge over the Intercoastal Waterway. He had made her acquaintance when he came into the salon for a haircut. On their date, he had opened doors for her, smiled at the right moments in the conversation, given the waiter order for dinner, and not so much as tried to kiss her when he had dropped her off. Best of all, he was good looking in an artistic sort of way, with sculpted cheekbones, emerald eyes, black hair, and a mustache. After he had dropped her off, she had felt like screaming, Hallelujah! I have seen the light. Singer hadn't seemed quite as impressed. After she had said good night to Richard, Singer had put on one of his I'm the boss around here acts. He had growled until Julie had opened the front door. Oh, stop it, she said. Don't be so hard on him. Singer did as he was told, but he had retreated to the bedroom where he had pouted the rest of the night. If my dog was any more bizarre, she thought, we could team up and work for a carnival right next to the guy who eats light bulbs. But then, my life hasn't exactly been normal either. But then, Julie turned on the faucet and stepped into the shower, trying to stem the tide of memories. What was the use of replaying hard times? Her mother, she often mused, had been fatally attracted to two things, booze and toxic men. Either one, either one without the other would have been bad, but the combination had been intolerable for Julie. Her mom went through boyfriends the way kids go through paper towels, and some of them made Julie feel less than comfortable once she hit adolescence. The last one had actually tried to have his way with her, and when Julie had told her mother, in a drunken, teary rage, had blamed her for coming on to him. It wasn't long before Julie found herself without a home. Living on the street had been terrifying, even for the 6 months or so before Jim came along. Most everyone she met used drugs and panhandled or stole, or worse. Scared of becoming like the haunted runaways she saw every night at the shelters and in the doorways, she searched frantically for odd jobs that would keep her fed and out of sight. She worked every menial job she saw offered and kept her head down. When she first met Jim at a diner in Daytona, she, is it Florida again? Mm. When she first met Jim at a diner in Daytona, she was nursing a cup of coffee with the last of her jacket change. Jim bought her breakfast and on the way out the door said he'd do the same thing the following day if she returned. Hungry, she did. And when she challenged him about his motives, she assumed she knew his reasons and could remember gearing up for quite the embarrassing public tirade about cradle robbers and jail time. Jim denied any improper interest in her. And at the end of the week, when he was getting ready to head for home, he made her a proposal. If she moves to Swansboro, North Carolina, he would help her get a full-time job and a place to stay. What could say I saw? What? Pulchritudinous? What the hell? Pul pulchritudinous or pulchrit? Can't make me bite my tongue, please. Anywho, y'all read the word that Cad put there in the chat. She remembered staring at him as though he had bugs crawling out of his ears. But a month later, considering she didn't have much scheduled on the old social calendar, she showed up in Swansboro, thinking as she got off the bus, what in the world am I doing in this nowhere town? Everywhere in North Carolina is a nowhere town. I probably was then when this book was either written or drafted. Nonetheless, she looked up Jim, who, despite her persistent skepticism, brought her over to the salon to meet his Aunt Mabel. And sure enough, she found herself sweeping floors for an hourly wage and living in the room upstairs from the salon. At first, Julie was relieved by Jim's lack of apparent interest, then curious, then annoyed. Finally, after running into Jim repeatedly and dropping what seemed to her quite shameless hints, she broke down and asked Mabel if she thought Jim found her unattractive. Only then did he seem to get the message. They went on a date, then another, and the hormones were surging after a month together. Real love came a short time later. He proposed. They walked the aisle in the church where Jim had been baptized, and Julie spent the first few years of their marriage drawing smiley faces every time she doodled by the phone. What more, she wondered, when considering her life, could anyone want? A lot, she soon realized. A few weeks after their fourth anniversary, Jim had a seizure on the way home from church and was rushed to the hospital. 2 years later, the brain tumor took his life. And at the age of 25, Julie found herself starting over once more. Adding Singer's unexpected appearance, and she had reached the point in her life where nothing surprised her anymore. Nowadays, she thought, it was the little things in life that mattered. If the highlights in her past set the tone, it was the day by day events that now defined who she was. Mabel, God bless her, had been an angel. She had helped Julie get her license so she could cut hair and earn a decent, if not extravagant, living. Henry and Emma, two good friends of Jim's, not only had helped her fit into town when she had first moved there, but had remained close even after Jim had passed away. And then there was Mike, Henry's younger brother and Jim's best friend growing up. In the shower, Julie smiled. Mike. Now, there was a guy who would make some woman happy one day, even if he seemed a little lost sometimes. A few minutes later, after toweling off, Julie brushed her teeth and hair, put on some makeup, and slipped into her clothes. Since her car was in the shop, she'd have to walk to work. It was about a mile up the street, and she put on a pair of comfortable shoes. She called Singer just as she was locking the door on her way out, nearly missing what had been left for her. Out of the corner of her eye, she spied a card wedged between the mailbox and the lid, right next to the front door. Curious, Julie opened it, reading it on the porch as Singer burst from the woods and trotted up to her. I had a wonderful time on Saturday. I can't stop thinking about you. Richard. So that was the reason Singer went bonkers last night. See, she said, holding out the card so Singer could see it. I told you he was a nice guy. Singer turned away. Don't give me that. You can admit you were wrong, you know. I think he's just jealous. Singer nuzzled against her. Is that it? Are you jealous? Unlike with other dogs, Julie didn't have to bend down to run her hand down his back. He was bigger than she had been when she had entered high school. This sounded like a monster dog. She always talk about how Singer was so big. Singer seemed like he was suffocating her when he lay on top of her in the bed. And now she says she don't have to bend down to rub his back. Either she is very short or Singer is very big. Don't be jealous, okay? Be happy for me. Singer circled to the other side and looked up at her. Now, come on. We have to walk because Mike's still fixing the Jeep. At Mike's name, Singer's tail wagged. You know, dogs sometimes can have so much more intuition than people. They can sense your fears. They can sense that something isn't right. And they sometimes pick up on people. You know, they always say, if a dog hates you, something is wrong with you. You know, they always say that. If a dog hates you, you got a problem. But the thing too is that it's based on which dog, what kind of dog. Because we know some dogs are downright vicious. Yeah. Kat says she loved the author's writing style. Me too. I love the author's writing style. He is simple, understandable, reasonable. He uses catchy phrase that are normal. When a writer use one whole heap of 16-letter words and drop in these strange words every two sentences, it sort of throws off the reader. And be like, what do they mean? Like, what are they talking about? You know? And by the time you go look up the words and look up that word, you sort of lose your train of thought when it comes onto the story. And you simply, eh, bit by bit, lose interest in the story. And the story becomes rather boring. But I must say, so far, I've read chapter one, and kudos to Nicholas Sparks. Yeah. No wonder this book is a novel by number one New York Times bestseller. Yeah, great book so far. Let us continue. We are going to move on to chapter two. And if we stop in the middle, so be it. But let's move on to chapter two. Welcome into the live, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you so much for stopping by. We are reading the book called The Guardian by Nicholas Sparks. And by now, I figure the guardian in the story is the dog named Singer. Let us move on. Mike Harris's song lyrics left a lot to be desired, and his singing voice didn't exactly make recording executives beat a path to his door in Swansboro. He did, however, play the guitar, and he practiced daily, hoping his big break was just around the corner. In 10 years, he had worked with a dozen different bands, ranging from the big hear the noise of 80s rock and roll to the Mamas trains and pickup truck style of country music. On stage, he had worn everything from leather pants and boa constrictors to chaps and a cowboy hat. And though he played with obvious enthusiasm and the band members couldn't help but like him, he was usually pulled aside after a few weeks and told that for some reason it just wasn't working out. It had happened enough times for even Mike to know that maybe it wasn't just a personality conflict, though he still couldn't bring himself to admit that he might not be any good. Mike kept a notebook too and scribbled down his thoughts in his spare time with the idea of using those expressions in a future novel. But the writing process was more difficult than he had first imagined it to be. It wasn't that he didn't have ideas, it was that he had too many ideas and couldn't figure out what should and shouldn't go in the story. Last year, he had tried to write a murder mystery set on a cruise ship, something Agatha Christie. Ha ha! Didn't we just read about Agatha Christie? Something Agatha Christie might have written, and it included the usual dozen suspects. But the plot, he thought, wasn't quite exciting enough, so he had tried to jazz it up, using every idea he had ever had, including a nuclear warhead hidden in Francisco, a crooked cop who was witness to the JFK assassination, an Irish terrorist, the mafia, a boy and his dog, an evil venture capitalist, and a time traveling scientist who had escaped the persecution of the Holy Roman Empire. By the end, the prologue had run to 100 pages, and the main suspect hadn't even arrived on the scene yet. Needless to say, he didn't get any further on it. In the past, he had also tried drawing, painting, working in stained glass, ceramics, wood carving, and macrame, and actually assembled some free-form art pieces in a burst of inspiration that kept him away from work for a week. He welded and wired scraps from old car parts into three towering old balanced structures, and when he was finished, he sat on his front steps, staring with pride at what he had done, knowing in his heart that he had finally found his calling. That feeling lasted for a week until the town council passed a no junk in the yard ordinance at a hastily called meeting. Like many people, Mike Harris had the dream and desire to be an artist. He just didn't have the talent. Mike could, however, fix practically anything. He was the consummate handyman, a veritable a veritable knight in shining armor when puddles formed beneath kitchen sinks or when garbage disposal went on the blink. But if he was a good handyman, he was a modern day Merlin when it came to anything with four wheels and an engine. He and Henry co-owned the busiest garage in town, and while Henry handled the paperwork, Mike was in charge of the actual work. Foreign cars or domestic, four-cylinder Ford Escorts or turbocharged 911 Porsches. He could repair them all. He could listen to an engine, hear pings and clicks where others couldn't, and figure out what was wrong, usually in less than a couple of minutes. He knew manifolds and intake valves, shocks, struts and pistons, radiators, and wheelbase adjustments, and he could set from memory the timing on practically every car that had rolled into the shop. He could rebuild engines without having to look at a manual. His fingerprints, his fingertips were stained permanently black, and though he knew it was a good way to make a living, he sometimes wished he could take a fraction of that talent and apply it to other areas of his life. The traditional ladies' man reputation associated with mechanics and musicians had passed Mike by. He had had two serious girlfriends in his lifetime, and since one of those relationships had been in high school and the other with Sarah had ended 3 years ago, a case could be made that Mike wasn't looking for a long term commitment or even a commitment that might last through the summer. Even Mike wondered about it sometimes. But these days, no matter how much he wished otherwise, it seemed as if most of his date ended with a kiss on the cheek while the woman thanked him for being such a good friend. At 34, Mike Harris was remarkably well versed in the tender art of embracing women in brotherly hugs while they cried on his shoulder about what a jerk their previous boyfriend had been. It wasn't that he was unattractive. With light brown hair and blue eyes, and an easy smile to go with his trim build, he was good looking in an all American kind of way. Nor was it that women didn't enjoy his company because they did. His lack of luck had more to do with the fact that women who dated Mike sensed that a relationship with him wasn't what Mike was really looking for. Can't say my type. The one with the greasy fingertips? Is your kind of guy? Or the good looking? Which one? His brother Henry knew why they felt that way. So did Mike's sister-in-law Emma. Mabel knew the reason as well, as did practically everyone who knew Mike Harris. Mike, they all knew, was already in love with someone else. Huh? Who was he in love with? Hey, Julie, what's up? Having just reached the outskirts of Swansboro old-fashioned business district, Julie turned when she heard Mike calling. Singer looked up at her and she nodded. Go ahead, she said. Singer galloped off, meeting Mike halfway. Mike stroked his head and back as they walked, then scratched behind his ears. When Mike stopped moving his hand, Singer bobbed his head up and down, wanting more. The one that can mess with engines. God says that's her type of guy, the one that can mess with engines. I hear you, sis. I hear you. That's all for now, big guy, Mike said. Let me talk to Julie. A moment later, he reached Julie as Singer sat beside him, still going after the hand. Hey, Mike, Julie said, smiling. What's going on? Not much. I just wanted to let you know your Jeep is done. What was wrong with it? Well, it was the alternator. Exactly what he had said the problem was on Friday when she had dropped it off. She remembered. Did you have to replace it? Yeah, yours was dead. But no big deal. The dealer had plenty in stock. I also fixed the oil leak too. By the way, I had to replace the seal near the filter. There was an oil leak? Didn't you notice the stains on your driveway? Not really, but then I wasn't looking. Mike smiled. Well, like I said, that's fixed as well. Do you want me to grab your keys and bring them by? No, I'll get 'em after work. I don't need 'em until later. I've got appointments all day. You know how Mondays are. She smiled. So how'd it go at the Clipper, by the way? I'm sorry I couldn't make it. Michael spent the weekend playing grunge rock with a group of his high school friends who dreamed of nothing more than meeting babes, drinking beer, and filling their days with MTV. Mike was at least a dozen years older than any of them, and when he had showed Julie the baggy pants and ratty t-shirt he would wear for the show last week, she had nodded and said, "Oh, that's nice," which really meant you are going to look absolutely ridiculous up there. I guess she said that with such sarcasm, huh? Okay, I guess, he said. Just okay? He shrugged. It wasn't my type of music anyway. She nodded. As much as she liked him, even as she didn't like his singing voice at all much, Singer, though, seemed to love it. Whenever Mike sang for friends, Singer howled along with him. It was a toss-up, according to, to local opinion, as to who would be the first to make it to the big time. Let me see what God say. You are crazy. God, you are crazy. So how much were the repairs? She asked. Mike seemed to debate the question as he scratched his chin absently. Two haircuts. Two haircuts should do it. Come on, let me pay this time, at least for the parts. I do have money, you know. In the past year, the Jeep, an old model CJ7, had been in the shop 3 times. Mike, however, was somehow able to keep it running smoothly between visits. You are paying, Mike protested, even though my hair is getting a little thin. It does need to be cut now and it does need a good haircut every now and then. You see our Joe? She out of control, ain't she? Well, two haircuts doesn't sound like a fair trade. It didn't take all that long to fix, and the parts weren't that much. The guy owed me a favor. Julie raised her chin slightly. Does Henry know you are doing this? Mike spread his arms, looking innocent. Of course he knows. I'm his partner. And besides, it was his idea. Sure it was, she thought. Well, thanks, she finally said. I appreciate it. My pleasure. Mike paused, wanting to talk a little bit longer, but not knowing exactly what to say. He glanced towards Singer. Singer was watching him closely, his head tilted to the side as if arguing. Well, get on with it, Romeo. Both of us know the real reason you are talking to her. Mike swallowed. So how did it go with him? Huh? He he tried to sound as casual as he could. Who? Richard? Yeah, Richard. Well, it was nice. Oh, Mike nodded, feeling beads of perspiration forming on his brow. He wondered how it could possibly be so hot this early in the morning. So, where do you go? He asked. The Slocum House. Pretty fancy for a first date, he offered. It was either that or Pizza Hut. He let me pick. Mike shifted from one foot to the other, waiting to see if she would add anything else. She didn't. Not good, he thought. Richard was definitely different and from Bob, the romantic number cruncher, or Ross, the sex maniac, or Adam from the bowels of Swansboro. With guys like that as the competition, Mike thought he stood a chance. But Richard, the Slocum House, it was nice. So, you had a good time? He asked. Yeah, we really had some good fun. Fun? How much fun? This, he thought, was not good at all. I'm glad. He lied, doing his best to fake enthusiasm. Julie reached for his arm. Don't worry, Mike. You know I'll always love you the most, right? Mike pushed his hands in his pockets. That's just because I fix your car, he said. Don't sell yourself short, she said. You helped patch my roof as well and repaired your machine. Don't forget that. She leaned over and kissed him on the cheek, then gave his arm a slight squeeze. What can I say, Mike? You are just a good guy. Yes, Joseph, she just being herself. Showing off her engine on YouTube. Oh my God, help my soul. Help my soul. God, we're calling you out all the way out. How you doing, Andrea? How are you doing, my darling? Good to see you. Happy Sunday. Let me get it right now. Happy Sunday to you, my love. I hope you're having a great, great, great Sunday. All right, we are going to continue with the reading of this book. We have another 15 minutes to read before we end. Oh my God, this book is so exciting. I'm glad I stopped reading that other book. I'm going to donate that other book to the Red Cross or something. That book is not my kind of reading. You remember that book we were reading earlier in the week? Yeah, but this one is very nice. Julie could feel Mike's eyes on her as she walked to the salon, though unlike the way she felt about some men's attraction or attention, she wasn't bothered by it at all. He was a good friend, she thought, then quickly changed her mind. No, Mike was a really good friend, someone she wouldn't hesitate to call in an emergency, the kind of friend who made life in Swansboro a whole lot easier, simply because she knew he'd always be there for her. Friends like him were rare, and that's why she felt bad for keeping some of the more private aspects of her life, like her most recent date, off limits. She didn't have the heart to go into details about it because well, Mike wasn't exactly Mr. Mysterious when it came to how he felt about her, and she didn't want to hurt his feelings. What was she supposed to have said? Compared to my new dates, Richard was great. Sure, I'd go out with him again. She knew Mike wanted to date her. She had known that for a couple of years now, but her feelings for Mike, aside from regarding him as her best friend, were complicated. How could they not be? Jim and Mike had been best friends growing up. Mike had been best man at their wedding. And Mike had been the one she had turned to for comfort after Jim had died. He was more like a brother, and it wasn't as if she could flip a switch and suddenly change the way she felt about him. But it was more than just that, because Jim and Mike were so close, because Mike had been part of both their lives, even imagining a date with him always left her with a vague feeling of betrayal. If she agreed to go out with him, did that mean that deep down she'd always wanted to? What would Jim think about that? And would she ever be able to look at Mike without thinking of Jim and those times in the past that they were all together? She didn't know. And what would happen if they did go out? But for whatever reason, it didn't work out. Things would change between them, and she couldn't bear losing him as a friend. It was easier if things just stayed the way they were. You know, guys, as Julie said this, it is sometimes better when you have a good friend that is a male or female. Don't mess it up with sex. Don't mess it up. You know why? After you all have gone that distance, you can't go back. You can't erase what has happened. And that will remain like a dagger in your relationship for the rest of your life. So when you have a good friend, be it male or female, don't you mess it up by getting into bed with them. That is one of the worst things you could ever do. Sometimes it work out for some people and they say, oh well, but he was already my best friend or she was already my best friend. And then you are married and you find out that being a best friend without sex in the picture and being a best friend with sex in the picture is two completely different things. Completely different. So don't do that. I wouldn't suggest that to anybody. But let us continue. She suspected that Mike knew all of this, and it was probably the reason he had never so much as asked her out, despite the fact that it was obvious he wanted to. Sometimes, though, like when they were on the boat last summer, water skiing with Henry and Emma, she got the feeling that he was working up the nerve to do it, and Mike was a little comical when those moods seemed to strike him. Instead of being Mr. Happy Go Lucky, the first to laugh at jokes, even those made at his expense, the guy you would ask to go pick up some more beer from the convenience store because everyone knew he wouldn't mind. Mike could suddenly get quiet, as if he suspected his whole problem with Julie arose from the fact that she didn't think he was being quite cool enough. Instead of laughing at what the others were saying, he'd wink or roll his eyes or study his fingernails. And when he had grinned at her on the boat that time, it had looked as if he were trying to say, hey baby, how about we blow this joint and have some real fun? His older brother, Henry, was ruthless when Mike got in those moods. Spotting his brother's sudden attitude shift, Henry had asked Mike if he had had too many beans for lunch because he didn't look all that well. Mike's ego had deflated right there. She smiled, thinking back on it. Poor Mike. The next day he was back to his old self, and Julie liked that version of Mike a whole lot better anyway. Guys who thought that any woman was lucky to have them. Guys who acted tough and cool or picked fights in bars to show the world that they couldn't be pushed around bored her. On the other hand, guys like Mike were pretty much a catch, no matter how she looked at it. He was both good hearted and nice looking. She liked the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and she adored his dimples. He really sound like your kind of guy, no cad. Exercising and creating boundaries are essential in friendships. Exactly, Andrea. Exactly. Me don't want no man friend around my woman. No way. I agree with you, Joseph. She had come to treasure the way bad news seemed to slide off him with a simple shrug. She liked guys who laughed, and Mike laughed a lot. And she really, really liked the sound of his laughter. As always, though, when she began thinking along those lines, she heard a voice inside her immediately pipe up. Don't go there. Mike's your friend, your best friend, and you don't want to ruin things, do you? As she mulled this over, Singer nudged against her, freeing her from her thoughts. He looked up at her. Yeah, go on, you big mooch, she said. Singer trotted ahead, past the bakery, then turned at the prop open door of Mabel's salon. Mabel had a biscuit for him every day. So how'd your date go? Henry leaned against the door frame next to the coffee maker, talking over the rim of a styrofoam cup. I didn't ask her about that, Mike answered, his tone implying the very thought was ridiculous. He stepped into his corner. He stepped into his coveralls and pulled them up over his jeans. Why did you ask? Well, I didn't think about it. Hmm, Henry said. At 38, Henry was 4 years older than Mike, and in many ways, Mike's alter, more mature ego. Henry was taller and heavier, and coasting into middle age with a waistline that expanded at the same rate his hair was receding. With a 12-year marriage to Emma and three young girls and a house instead of an apartment, he had a bit more stability in his life. Unlike Mike, he had never had artistic dreams of any sort. In college, Mike had majored in business finance. And like most older brothers, he couldn't escape the feeling that he had to watch out for his younger sibling to make sure he was okay, that he wasn't doing things he'd later regret. That was brotherly support, including teasing, insults, and the occasional zinger to bring Mike back down to earth might have might have struck some as heartless. But how else was he supposed to do it? Henry smiled. Somebody had to watch out for Mike. After Mike not sick or mentally challenged. Like, what is going on here? Mike had worked the grease-stained coveralls up to his waist. I just wanted to tell her that her car was finished. Already? I thought you said it had an oil leak. It did, and it's already done? It only took a few hours. Hmm. Henry nodded, thinking, if you were any more whipped, little brother, they'd serve you on ice cream. Instead of saying that, Henry cleared his throat. So that's what you did this weekend, huh? Worked on her car. Not the whole time. I also played at the Clipper. But I guess you forgot about that, huh? Henry raised his hands in defense. You know, I'm more of a Garth Brooks and Tim McGraw fan. I don't like that new stuff. And besides, Emma's parents came by for dinner. They could have come too. Henry laughed, nearly spilling his coffee. You're right. Can you imagine me bringing those two to the Clipper? They think they think the stuff you hear in elevators is too loud and that rock music is sometimes is Satan's form of mind control. They'd bleed from their ears if they went to the clipper. I'll tell Emma you said that. Uh-huh, she'll agree with me, he said. Those were her words, not mine. So how'd it go? At the clipper, I mean. Well, okay. Henry nodded, understanding completely. Sorry to hear that. Mike shrugged as he zipped up the overalls. So what did you charge Julie for her car this time? 3 pencils and a sandwich? 3 pencils? Ah, 3 pencils and a sandwich? No, a shiny rock? Ha ha ha. Seriously, I'm just curious. Well, the usual. Henry whistled. It's a good thing I run the books around here. Mike tossed him an impatient glance. You know you would never have given her a deal too. You would have given her a deal too. I know that. So why are you bringing it up? Because I want to know how her date went. How does what I charge her to fix her car, what does that have to do with a date? Henry smiled. I'm not sure, little brother. What do you think? I think you had too much coffee this morning and you are not thinking straight. Henry finished up his cup. You know, you are probably right. I'm sure you don't care all about Julie and that date. Exactly. Henry reached for the coffee pot and poured another cup. Then you probably don't care about Mabel. Then you probably don't care about Mabel either, do you? Mike looked up. Mabel? Henry nonchalantly added cream and sugar. Yeah, Mabel. She saw them out on Saturday night. How did you know? Well, because I talked to her after church yesterday, and she told me about it. She did? Henry turned his back to Mike and headed to the office, breaking into a grin. But like you said, you don't care, so I'll just drop it. Henry knew from experience that Mike was still standing outside the door, frozen in place, long after he had taken his seat at his desk. OMG! OMG! Mike is scared to ask Julie out. Julie is scared to have a relationship with Mike because she knows that Mike was a friend of her husband, Bob, and she is worried that crossing that line and going into a romantic relationship with him might be very weird. I think in one book that we read, which book was that? Somebody fell in love with their. Did I read that book aloud? But I read a book where somebody fell in love with. Some woman fell in love with her husband's best friend after her husband died in a war. I remember I don't read so many books. But anyway, it is never a good idea. I do not suggest it. And I do not suggest that if you have a woman or a man that is your friend that you can call on any time, that you all have established a friendship, a pure friendship, that you should mess it up. That you should mess it up by hold on, let me see what this hold on there. This got to be important the way it has come in. Okay, that's taken care of. Yeah, Joseph, to me, I would not want to destroy any friendship of mine by. I would want to incorporate any in. What am I saying? I wouldn't want to damage any friendship of mine by incorporating sex into it because sex is such a delicate matter. It is so delicate. I mean, it's like some people may treat it as something casual, like, oh, it don't matter. I just have sex with you. For me, going that distance with somebody means something. So Maybe that's why me not usually let go of a people so easily after we have crossed that line. But to me, I don't think that friendship you should be. You can't mix friendship and sex. I cannot be your friend and we are sleeping together and I say, oh, he's just my best friend. So what about the rest of your life, the rest of your relationship? Because if I'm your best friend, chances are that I'm also friends with your partner. And if during our friendship we are sleeping together, what kind of web of deceit am I weaving with you and your partner? No, sir, that doesn't sound too right. Not gonna involve me in that. No, no. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. Not gonna do that. Wouldn't do that. Is either your friend is either that you are my friend or you are my partner. But uh-uh. You understand? I thought boy he's me say Grant, yeah, like he's my buddy. Well, they take the word buddy to a whole new meaning, you know? They give a whole new meaning to the word buddy. No, I don't think it is appropriate. I think it is more of crossing the line if you sleep with somebody who you consider to be your friend with no commitment, with no plan for the future, no plan, no plans for having a relationship with this person. I think it's just a lead on. And I don't think that is right. And what if one person has more emotions about about one than the other? What if by just sleeping with you, I start to get so attached to you? I feel so compelled, like I want to be with you. And you are just feeling, oh, it's just sex, and we can go back to our friendship just like that. No, those things can lead to all kinds of problems. I mean, I know how people go out of their way to seek problems and then complain that they have problems. That is one thing I can never understand. You go out of your way to seek the problem and then you complain, say you have so much problem. Of course you're gonna have problem because that's what you sought. So don't corrupt your friendship. Do not corrupt your friendship with any kind of romance. No, no. And I'm glad Julie is holding her ground. She's having a deep conversation with herself, asking herself whether or not she should date Mike, considering that Mike was her deceased husband's childhood friend. They had grown up together, they had been best friends, and he was also the best man at her wedding. She is still struggling. She is struggling with the idea as to it would be appropriate, whether or not it would be appropriate for her to date Mike. Well, I don't think I could. But everybody's circumstance is different, and everybody has a right to determine what is best for them. Yeah. So if that is your thing, I wish you the best. If that is not your thing, we are on the same page. Yeah. We ain't dating our friends. Not at all. I have male friends who are my friends. My friends. But me wouldn't think of dating them. Me don't think of sleeping with them. Because that just contaminate the whole relationship. Uh-uh. Unless you are somebody who likes, casual encounters. If you like casual encounters, kudos to you. Casual encounters is not my thing. Yeah, we have to sit down and talk about it and determine what we're gonna do with this. And after this encounter, where do we go from here? But it can be that okay, my honey right now, you are available. Let's jump in the sack, and then we get up and bed, wash off, and forget about it. Get out of my face with that foolishness. That's like child's play. Mm-mm. Too grown for them kind of foolishness there. But anywho, that is going to be it from me for this evening. I'm so glad I was able to get in another hour of live. We did what, 2 hours this morning? Hour of chat, hour of the Bible, and then another. Yeah, I wish I could have gotten in 4 hours for the day. But hey, we do what we do. All right? Yes. And it's not the length of the journey, it's just that you have begun, because every journey begins with the first step. So we are going bit by bit, one day at a time. Sweet Jesus, that's all I'm asking of you. Give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. So for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time, my friends. Joe say, me not in a no hide and seek business. Exactly. Watch your so Grant said me to get out of my car. Grant, how are you? Let me no must get out of my car, come in my house, come sleep. Sleep and eat and wake up, take a bath and ready, get myself, put on my makeup and all these good things. And now I'm ready to go. So I will see you all guys later. So maybe on my way to work, we just go and chat. Give me 5 minutes. In a twice in a lifetime. Yeah, I think so. Yes, guys. So I'm going to may I get myself together now to go to work, and I might see you all in a little bit. Yeah. If me leave here by 6:20, we can run a 30-minute live. If not, I will. Yeah, I'm going to work right now, Jojo. If not, I will definitely see you all in the morning. Me not go come on early tomorrow morning because I got a lot of things to finish at work before I leave, because I'll be going on my birthday vacay. Yeah. So this is like the last day I'm going to be at work for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going off on my vacation for my birthday. So we gonna party. We gonna party. Okay, guys. Anywho, that's going to be it from me for right now, my friends. Until next time, this is Trev from Traverse, where your journey matters. I hope you all enjoy the reading of The Guardian. I hope you all are enjoying it as much as I am enjoying bringing it to you. Until next time, my friends, this is Trev from Travestance, where your journey matters. Have yourselves a great evening, everybody.